Hello and welcome to How Did They Do That, the show where we pick out a small detail, effect or interesting moment from a game and break down how the game's developer achieved it. In today's episode we'll be looking into how Naughty Dog achieved the seamless world seen in Jak and Daxter. For the uninitiated, Jak and Daxter was a PS2 3D platformer, notably one of, if not the first, open world one. To clarify, once you've loaded into the world you can play right from the beginning to the end with no loading screen. The environments built in Jak were a pretty amazing achievement, and in many areas you can even observe other levels you have either come from or have yet to visit. As cliched as it sounds, this really helps create a sense of immersion that hadn't really been felt up until this point, but how exactly did they manage it? The answer to that is in fact through several different methods, both with the way levels are designed and some other clever trickery. The first of these methods is something we've discussed on this channel before. I'll quickly cover the basics now, but feel free to watch the Spyro's Fogless Worlds episode for an expanded explanation. Effectively, the game engine uses a method called LOD, or level of detail. The world in most 3D games is made of polygons. The amount of polygons an artist is able to use in any model is determined by many different factors, with system hardware playing a major role. An LOD system helps with some of these limitations. In simple terms, when your character, or their camera, in our case Jak, moves a certain distance from a model, it is switched out for one with a lower polygon count and a smaller texture. The result being that models close up can be detailed and those far away not so much. In many games this is a visible difference that designers may deem a necessary evil, but in Jak they found several ways to hide this pop-in, at least to a certain extent. The first of these is the way that levels are actually designed. As I stated before, the world is actually seamless, but that doesn't mean it lacks distinct areas. In fact, Naughty Dog crafted a world that could go from a small village to a volcano and then onto a snowy mountain, and keep it feeling consistent. Most of the levels transition to each other by foot, some via vehicle sections and others through cutscene vehicles such as a cable car or hovercraft. The areas of levels with a foot transition are often split by a hallway, a tunnel or just a cleverly calculated corner. As an example, Sandover Village is built on a curve, leading round to Sentinel Beach. The most common way to reach it would be through the village itself. The village is quite a dense area, but there is a small fairly empty section that you must traverse before reaching the main beach. During this less dense part you lose sight of the low detailed version of the beach for a few moments. This gives the game time to swap it out for the higher detailed version. Alternatively, you could reach Sentinel Beach via the water. However, of course, Naughty Dog thought of that. Upon reaching the section of the sea that surrounds the village, the camera is slowly transitioned away from your control and into a scripted position. This means that when swimming through a specific section of water, the camera pans down, and therefore masks the loading of the high detailed beach. As it happens, you can only really swim close to the shore due to the lurker shark and his taste for Jak. All this means that no matter how you approach the beach, the game will try its best to hide the mechanics, which in turn results in a much smoother immersive experience. Last but not least is Jak's somewhat infamous trip mechanic, often discussed but rarely able to be recreated. This one is simple but elegant. If you're speeding through an area and the disc can't be read quickly enough, Jak simply trips over. To the player it's a momentary oddity that rarely happens, but it gives the disc reader the precious time it needs to load. There are of course plenty of other examples of small mechanics like these throughout the game. Here for instance, you climb aboard a lift inside a volcano. The lift then takes you all the way to the top of the mountain. Granted, this transition is a little more obvious because you're relieved of control for a few moments. Even so, there are still no loading screens, thus helping smooth that experience out. That about wraps it up for today. Is there an effect or detail you've seen in a game that's had you wondering, how did they do that? If so, be sure to leave it in the comments below and we may just cover it. Thanks for watching, ta-ra!